The laws that govern elections in the Sunshine State are complex, including those that govern third-party organizations that register and update voter information.
We have a lot of questions about how what happened. J.C. Planas is a Miami attorney specializing in Florida election law, and also he's a former state representative from MiamiDade and joins us live now. J.C., great to have you.
Good morning, Glenna. Good morning, Michael. Always great to be with you guys.
J.C., let me just ask you to get on the record here. Glenna did some, in my view, extraordinary reporting, showing that these older Hispanic, Spanish-speaking, mainly Cuban-American folks who live in high-rises, subsidized housing in Miami, they were duped. They were shown, we're going to help you update your information, and their voter registrations were changed. I mean, this is really attacking foundational American democracy.
Michael, you mentioned one thing, and when you look at even the minimal amount of absentee ballot or mail ballot voter fraud, it always occurs in nursing homes, residential housing, or ALFs. I think one of the things that we have to do, besides strengthening the voter law, is we need to limit access of any sort of voting entity to these places. I've lobbied before to have mandatory supervised vote by mail voting in these buildings, and that can almost eliminate all of the fraud there. With these voter registrations, the fact that it occurred in these buildings shows the fact that we need to start treating how politicians deal with these buildings in a better way.
That's such an interesting point, because I will tell you, in our reporting, at least one of the public housing complexes, the senior housing Haley Soft G Towers in Miami, is a closed and secure building. You cannot get in unless you are invited by someone or you have a little card that you can swipe. So any third-party voter organization representatives, here we're actually looking at that, would have to be allowed in, yes, which is frankly not unusual. When we were there, residents opened the door for us. But we also have reports of people who live in homes as well. But here's my biggest question is, the third-party organization rep helps they have been reported to be very kind, very nice, they do their thing, and then the voter signs at the bottom. And if the signatures match, which what we have seen and the records we have pulled, we've told the signatures do match, what recourse does a voter have if a voter puts his or her signature at the bottom of a change form?
Well, if the voter can attest under oath that they were lied to, that the person who got the form didn't tell them that they were switching parties, then that is fraud. There's a statute 104.061, and it's a felony, and it's about deterring voters through fraud. As Senator Tadeo mentioned in the last segment, we are a closed primary state. So by changing someone's registration, you are now prohibiting them from voting in the primary of their choice. If that voter can swear under oath that they were fraudulently duped into doing this, then the person who got that registration for them, knowing that they were already registered, because remember, they knocked on their door knowing that these folks were already registered and they were changing the registration, it would be a violation of 104.061, which is a felony. You also have a statute 104.41, which is violations not otherwise provided for. And that was a catch-all that was placed in the statute for, occurrences that, knowing that, sometimes fraudsters will think up new ways to defraud voters. And that's a misdemeanor. We have things in the statute that prosecutors could use, but this would only be in the case if the voter can attest and swear that they were duped into doing this.
Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, I think in the past we have shown that she can be aggressive in prosecuting, investigating voter fraud, and she appears to be on the case. We have not heard a formal response from her yet, but would you assume that she's going to move forward with some alacrity here?
Well, based on the way that they have prosecuted the issue of the false candidate, which again, Channel 10 was an instrumental part in breaking that story, the way they've done that prosecution leads me to believe that they're going to take this extremely seriously. I can tell you the fact that they haven't given comment on this is important, because what they never give comments on are active investigations.
Right.
If they would have given a response, I would be more concerned that they're not taking it seriously. The fact that they haven't commented means that they have probably looked at things already.
I want to just alert everybody to a tweet that Kathy Fernandez Rundle's office put out late yesterday, that they are aware of recent reports of registration fraud. And according to the tweet, we have been investigating these claims for several weeks now. And there it is. Tommy, our producer, is so on point today. So this is a tweet that the state attorney put out. So we don't know where the investigation is, but we do know that she's aware of it and is on it. JC, I wanted to put up another graphic with some numbers, because switching parties is a thing. People do it. So we asked for the records from all of last year and right up to date to this week. These are the people in Miami-Dade, the voters who switched parties. 5,488 Democrats became Republicans. Just under 1,700 Republicans became Democrats. Wow, on so many levels. What do you make of those numbers?
You know, it's interesting because you don't really see radical voter registration switches. Folks don't, I mean, you know, I was a rarity. I switched last year, but it's a rarity. People kind of tend to view this with tradition. You have to look at voter switches with a skeptical eye. I think that, especially in today's politics, where things have become a little bit more radicalized, I would be less skeptical of massive registration switches to NPA, no party affiliated, or as we call independent. I'd be less skeptical at that, as you know, from Democrat to Republican. And I think it's something that we definitely need to look into.
Yeah. JC, as you well know, because you're an expert in this area, only a few years ago in the state of Florida, there were about 300,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans. The number has been going steadily down. As of, I believe, early January, the governor said we have more Republicans registered by about 30,000 or so. And, you know, to give credit where credit is due, the governor and the Republican Party of Florida have put on a massive voter registration drive. It would just be so unfortunate if part of that drive was to get older people to inadvertently change their registration.
I mean, listen, this is something that the Republicans have always had a better ground game than the Democrats. As a new Democrat, this is something I'm looking to help change. But I do think that something that causes a swing like this has to be looked at with skepticism. I think we have to look at something else as well. Other states don't have identified party voter registrations. Other states have open primaries. I think the time is now for open primaries, especially when voters are susceptible to something like this, which can stop them from voting in the primary of their choice. When you look at voter registration increases, the actual percentage, the highest percentage increase is actually NPA. You have a lot of voters that are dissatisfied with the messages coming out of the two major parties and are registering NPA. The fact that we don't give these folks an opportunity to vote in a primary that many times decides who sits in the state legislature, who sits in Congress, I think is shameful. I think the time has come now to open our primary system so, you know, shenanigans like this will have less impact on the voters.
Well, as an NPA, I would absolutely like to talk about that, and one day we'll do a whole show on it. JP Planas, great to have you. So appreciate your perspective.
Thank you, JC. Always good to see you. Thank you.